On the first day after traveling through time, I tackled the landlord like a thief, only to later discover she was a singer blacklisted by her company. Using the pop songs from my past life, I helped her write an album. She asked me how good I was, and I said just a little bit. Now she's a top-tier star, while I'm still writing mediocre novels, with readers cursing my ancestors every day for updates. My name is Gu Jinan. When I woke up, I had traveled to a parallel world and become a struggling web novel author. Every day, it's the same routine. Open the laptop, type, upload. Life feels like a record stuck on repeat. But I'm pretty content. Having a second life means no more being a corporate drone. Just write novels and enjoy life. It's way too good to be true. I rented a secondary bedroom in an old apartment building in Lynching City. The master bedroom was always empty, and I heard the landlord never came by. Living alone in a two-bedroom apartment, I slept in every day, completely at ease. The original owner of this body had written a novel called The Bright Moon of Qin, which was doing mediocre on a Chinese web platform, barely enough to make a living. What I needed to do was bring over the legendary works from my past life. The one I'm currently replicating is The Legend of Sword and Fairy, a masterpiece that was hailed as the pinnacle of Xinxia in my original world. That morning at 4, I was sound asleep when the sound of the door lock turning jolted me awake. I sprang out of bed. Someone had broken in. No time to think. I felt my way to the door in the dark and heard the bathroom door click shut. I tiptoed into the living room and waited like a cat for a mouse. The bathroom door opened. I lunged at them and pinned them to the floor, my hands gripping tightly. Then I froze. The person I had subdued was a girl. She was stunningly beautiful, with peach blossom eyes full of shock and fear, skin as pale as white jade. She struggled desperately, her shin hitting the corner of the sofa, and it hurt so much her eyes welled up. "Who are you?" I asked warily. This is my home," she replied, her voice trembling but surprisingly pleasant. My head went buzzing. The tenant in the master bedroom? No, she said it was her home. The conversation that followed confirmed my most awkward guess. She was the landlady, Xian Ji, a third-tier singer blacklisted by Starlight Entertainment. She originally debuted as the runner-up on a talent show, but because she refused to drink at business dinners to schmooze, her company suppressed her, demanding she produce original work within 3 months, or else pay a hefty penalty or obediently comply. She fled to Lincheng and hid in her small apartment, planning to quietly write songs, only to find that her assistant had rented it out to a tenant me. And just now, I tackled her thinking she was a thief. The situation was incredibly awkward. I pulled out the first aid kit to treat her wounds. Her right hand was scraped, and her left calf was bruised, painful enough to make her gasp, but she stubbornly stayed silent. I dipped a cotton swab in disinfectant and barely touched her palm when she jerked her hand back. "It'll scar," I said flatly. Her eyes widened. After 3 seconds of hesitation, she slowly reached out her hand. After the wound was treated, she hid in the master bedroom and locked all 3 locks. I sighed. There was no way to explain myself now. The next day, I cooked millet porridge. She was starving and ate 3 bowls by herself, finishing off half a plate of pickles. She thought I hadn't noticed her eating like that, but I saw everything. The almost untouched takeout in the trash gave her away. After dinner, she took out a piece of paper titled 3 Rules for Roommates, densely packed with a bunch of terms. Things like no disclosing the roommate arrangement, no bringing friends over, no entering her room without permission, and keeping quiet after 10 p.m. I glanced over it and signed. Anyway, I was already a homebody who only went out to buy groceries, so these rules didn't matter much to me. For the next few days, we lived as roommates who never interfered with each other, like water from 2 different wells. I sat at my computer every day, churning out web novels, while she stayed in her room writing songs. One afternoon, I was lying on the sofa, scrolling through my phone when I noticed her guitar leaning against the corner. My fingers itched, so I picked it up and strummed a few chords, humming a random melody. It was a pop song from my past life. I couldn't recall the name, but the tune was etched in my mind. I played it twice, got bored, put it down, and went back to my room to meet my writing deadline. That afternoon, I heard her door open, and soon guitar sounds came from the living room. She was playing the melody I had played at noon. I didn't think much of it. The next day at noon, I picked up her guitar again in the living room and played. This time she was humming the chorus of a love song, the kind with an especially catchy melody. She stood at the door holding a cup of water and watched me for a long time, but I didn't notice. At dinner, she suddenly spoke. Can you write songs? No, I said, taking a mouthful of rice. I'm just a novelist. I was just noodling around. She didn't ask again, but the look in her eyes clearly showed she didn't believe me. On the third day, things completely spiraled out of control. In the afternoon, when I came back from grocery shopping and pushed open the door, I heard an ethereal singing from her room. It was exactly the melody I had played yesterday. She had rewritten the lyrics, weaving her own story and emotions into the song. Her voice was like an angel's. I stood at the door, dumbfounded. With a voice like that, no wonder she was the runner-up in a talent show. The singing stopped. The door opened. She saw me standing there, and her face turned red all the way to her ears. You wrote that song. Why did you lie and say you couldn't? She held a piece of paper densely covered with notes and lyrics. I scratched my head. I know a little bit. A little bit? You call this a little bit? She thrust the paper in front of me. I've listened for 3 days. Every melody is a complete piece. It's not that you can't write songs, you just don't want to admit it. I was speechless. For the next 3 days, she cornered me in the living room, insisting I help her transcribe the songs she'd played before. I gritted my teeth and wrote down the melodies from memory, and when she hummed them against the sheet music, her eyes sparkled like stars. Then she submitted the songs I'd written to the company, buying herself a 1-month extension. The company gave her time to finish a full album, and if the results met expectations, they'd lift the freeze. Why are you helping me? She asked me. I thought for a moment and said, maybe because I owe you medical bills for knocking you down. That made her laugh the first time she ever smiled at me. From that day on, our co-living arrangement changed. She practiced every day with her guitar in the living room, and I sat at the dining table typing away, her voice serving as the background music. Sometimes she'd ask me if a lyric was good or a melody was right. I'd stammer, unable to give an answer. So she'd figure it out on her own and make it sound even better than the original. A month later, her album was finished. On the day the company reviewed it, I cooked her a bowl of noodles as a farewell. After finishing the noodles, she set down her chopsticks and said, if I successfully break my contract, I'll treat you to a meal. Okay, I nodded. I'll be waiting. She dragged her luggage out the door. He turned back at the door and said, your song is really amazing. Of course, I smiled just a little bit. The door closed. The living room fell silent, leaving only the guitar she had left in the corner. A week later, she came back. As she pushed open the door, I was facing the computer, rushing a manuscript. I looked up and saw her standing at the doorway with red eyes. How did it go? My heart tightened. The album passed. Her voice was trembling. The company agreed to terminate the contract. Then why do you look like that? Because she bit her lip? I officially terminated the contract today. There's only $3,000 left in my bank card. I can't even afford a car. She paused, then suddenly said something unexpected in a low voice. Can I keep living here? This is your house after all, I said with a wry smile. I know, but she lowered her head. I don't have much money for rent. The house is yours, but what about utilities? Don't you have 30 million? She looked up, her peach blossom eyes sparkling. I couldn't tell if she'd been crying or what, but she looked stunning anyway. What 30 million? I mean, millions of happiness, millions of health, and millions of wealth. She paused for a moment, then smiled a particularly beautiful smile. What about you? I tapped on the keyboard and continued writing my novel. We'll talk about your rent when it's due, she said, sitting on the sofa with a cushion hugged to her chest, watching me type at the computer. The setting sun streamed through the window, bathing the entire living room in gold. After a while, she suddenly spoke. You're not really from this world, are you? My fingers paused on the keyboard for a second. How did you figure that out? Because of the novels you write, she said, pointing at the screen. They're different from the ones in this world. I smiled. Then the songs you write are also different from those in this world. She thought for a moment. That's true. That evening, she made another bowl of noodles this time, 2 servings. We sat facing each other, eating the noodles. She said to me, I still want to sing. Can you keep writing songs for me? I told her I only knew a little. That's okay. She looked at me seriously. Knowing just a little is enough. I lowered my head and took a bite of noodles, mumbling in reply. You agreed. The noodles are getting cold. She smiled, lowered her head to eat. Loose hair covered her expression, but I thought I saw something glistening in the corner of her eye. The next morning, I was woken by a knock on the door. When I opened it, She stood there holding a guitar, morning light streaming in from behind her, making her look as if she were gilded. Get up and write songs. It's only 7 o'clock. Singers have to get up early. I'm not a singer. I'm an online writer. But you're my exclusive lyricist. Who said so? I said so. I looked at her righteous attitude and suddenly felt that being transmigrated into this life might be worth it after all. Later, she made a successful comeback with the songs I wrote, signed with a new company, and step by step rose from third tier to second tier, her popularity growing. And I remained an unknown online author, getting scolded by readers in the comments, everyday procrastinator, padding word count. But every time she came back from recording, she would bring me small gifts, sometimes a good pen, sometimes a book I mentioned wanting to read. Until one day, her new song release was streamed live. A reporter asked, "Did you write this song yourself?" She smiled at the camera. "No, it was written by my exclusive lyricist." "Can you reveal his name?" "It's a secret, but he has a nickname." "What?" "Missed to know a little." I was sitting on the sofa eating watermelon and watching the live stream, and I nearly spat out a mouthful of watermelon. That woman. I picked up my phone and sent a message. 3 seconds later, she replied a voice recording. I tapped it open and heard the demo of her new song. Not just any song, it was the one I first messed around with on the living room piano. At the end of the recording, her voice came through, cool and beautiful. "Thank you for letting me keep singing." I froze, watermelon juice dripping from my chin onto my t-shirt. My phone buzzed again her message. "But didn't you say you only knew a little?" "Liar." I smiled and typed back 2 words, "Right back at you." Later, she settled down in Lincheng, bought a car and a house. 3 years on, she became a true top-tier singer, winning the Best Female Singer Award. At the awards ceremony, she stood under the spotlight in her evening gown, holding the trophy and telling the audience, "Thank you to my exclusive lyricist. He said he only knows a little, but in my heart, he's the person who understands music best in the world." The audience erupted in applause. Only I knew that the little knowing gentleman she mentioned was sitting at home in his shorts, watching TV. Because I am the exclusive lyricist for that female singer who is struggling the most. She doesn't even have a car, she's really doing badly, Xianji thought to herself. But her aloof personality didn't allow her to show it. She just pretended to carry it with ease and walked out of the supermarket. When Xianji returned to the apartment, the moon was like a hook hanging high in the sky. She felt she had made it back purely on willpower. Her forehead was covered in fine sweat. Her freshly washed hair already felt greasy again. Her arms and legs were sore and aching. She had bought too many things and was already prepared not to leave the house anymore. The living room was dim. Xianji turned on the light and dragged 2 large bags of groceries to the refrigerator. When she opened the refrigerator, Xianji was a bit stunned because what she saw inside was neatly arranged. The apartment's refrigerator was very large, a Medea double-door model taller than Xia and Ji herself, a full 178 centimeters. And now the scene she saw was that the left door was packed with food, making full use of the space, while the right side was completely empty. The idiom desolate and lonely really fit perfectly here. Xianji was quite surprised because of the refrigerator's design. The left compartment was smaller than the right. He had specifically cleaned out the refrigerator and left the larger right side for her. Her impression of Gu Jinan, aside from being able to cook, but being a brute, had improved a little. Gu Jinan, leisurely browsing information in the room, suddenly sneezed twice and quickly turned off the air conditioner. He knew that keeping the air conditioner on all day while typing under a blanket was not a good habit. Xianji, unconsciously imitating Gu Jinan's arrangement method, put the food she bought one by one on the shelves. Her stomach suddenly growled. To punish herself for eating too much last night, she had only drunk a little milk today, which she bought when she went out just now. Now her stomach was protesting. She pursed her lips and took the noodles, greens, eggs, and lean meat that she hadn't put away into the kitchen. She remembered the last time she cooked noodles herself was it sophomore or junior year. In her senior year, she was busy with graduation and also busy participating in talent shows. Time is really strange. It always makes people rush through life without noticing. Gu Jinan had no idea what Xianji was doing outside. He wasn't organizing the follow-up to The Legend of Sword and Fairy either. Instead, he was attracted by a piece of news on a Chinese literature website. Chinese poetry submission and appreciation event. An ancient saying goes, "Learning enriches one's spirit." Chinese culture is vast and profound. As members of the Chinese nation, we have been steeped in poetry and classics since childhood, reciting verses daily without pause. Over time, we are subtly influenced by our traditional culture, our minds filled with poetry and books, thereby enhancing our artistic taste and cultural depth. To this end, Chinese Online Literature Network, in collaboration with Chinese Poetry Network, is proud to launch the first Chinese online literature poetry creation and appreciation activity, announcing to all authors and readers, from today onward, poetry submissions are warmly welcomed. Organizers. Chinese Online Literature Network. Chinese Poetry Network. 2. Eligibility. All authors, readers of Chinese Online Literature Network, and poetry enthusiasts from Chinese Poetry Network are welcome to participate. 3. Submission requirements. Works must follow correct prosody without restrictions on themes. Both classical poetry and modern verses are acceptable. They should promote Chinese culture, spread the spirit of poetry, and aim to engage the public in sharing the beauty and joy of poetry, drawing nourishment from it to nurture the soul. 4. Evaluation and rewards. 1. No fees are charged for submissions. Upholding the principles of fairness, justice, and meritocracy, the selection process will involve voting by netizens, and the organizing committee will invite senior experts and professors to form a judging panel for preliminary evaluation, secondary evaluation, and award ceremony. 2. The competition will award gold, silver, bronze, and excellence prizes. The prizes include 1 gold award of 50,000 yuan, 2 silver awards of 30,000 yuan each, and 10 bronze awards of 10,000 yuan each. 3. Winning works will be selected for publication on cooperative newspapers and websites, or compiled and published in collections. Submission method. A dedicated poetry submission interface has been opened. Click on it, fill in your information, and submit your work. We will uniformly update all submissions on the Poetry Submission webpage after the submission deadline on July 1st. 6. Judging period. From July 1st to 15th. The final rankings will be announced on the 15th. 50,000 for first place. That's several months' worth of royalties for Gu Jinan from writing The Legend of Qin right now. I gotta find a way to snag it. Gu Jinan fell in a deep thought. To be honest, he had quite a few poems in his head, not 500 Tang poems, but at least he remembered some. They needed to be stunning, catchy, evocative, and beautifully artistic to capture people's hearts. Gu Jinan began sifting through his memories. Those 50,000 yuan really tempted him. It could greatly improve his parents' lives. His parents worked in a factory in a small county town, and his family's financial situation was just enough to have enough to eat and wear, with no extra money to spare. Bang! A sharp sound suddenly came from outside. Gu Jinan jolted. It was the sound of glass shattering. What the heck was that person doing out there? His train of thought was abruptly interrupted, like a river surging forward only to be dammed by a sudden levee, leaving him completely lost for what to think next. Thinking and doing were always different. The moment he heard the shattering sound, Gu Jinan got up from his chair and headed for the door. Opening the door, he saw the living room lights were bright. On the kitchen floor lay scattered glass, shards from a large bowl. A slender figure with a ponytail was crouched on the ground, carefully picking up the pieces. Who else could it be but Xia Ange? Gu Jinan sighed, lamenting the heroic sacrifice of the large bowl. He walked to the wall rack outside the kitchen, grabbed a small cloth, and crouched down beside Xia Ange, stopping her little hand that was reaching for the glass shards. It's dangerous to do that. After saying this, he focused on picking up the fragments one by one with the cloth protecting his hand, tossing them into the trash bin without even glancing at Xia Ange. Xia Ange lowered her head. No one could see the expression on her face, but the tips of her ears seemed about to bleed, flushed in unusually deep red. It was just a slip of the hand. The noodles were cooked, and she was reaching into the cupboard for a bowl when it fell, shattering into glass shards all over the floor. Soon enough, Gu Jinan cleaned up expertly. Confirming there were no leftover bits, he gave a satisfied clap at his hands and looked at Xia Ange standing in the living room, looking a bit nervous. Are you hurt? Xia Ange shook her head, a little surprised by the man's domestic skills. Glad to hear it. Gu Jinan nodded and turned to head back to his room. He still had grand ambitions to fulfill, but which poem should he choose? The requirement of no restrictions on themes actually made it harder for him than a specified topic. There was no other way. He was just too brilliant. Do you want some noodles? Gu Jinan had only taken 2 steps when he heard a very soft voice, making him turn back in surprise. Xia and slightly averted her gaze, not looking into Gu Jinan's eyes. It's to thank you for helping me clean up the glass shards. If you don't want any, forget it. Her voice was still light and cold. Sure, I'm just hungry anyway. Thanks. Gu Jinan wasn't hungry, but somehow he wanted to taste the noodles Xia and had cooked. This time, Gu Jinan took the big bowls, 2 of them, handing one to Xia and she accepted it with both hands, her fingers briefly brushing against his before she quickly withdrew the bowl. Cool but warm. That was Gu Jinan's immediate impression. At the dining table, the two sat diagonally across from each other, deliberately keeping their distance. Gu Jinan looked at the steaming noodles, egg, shredded pork, and vegetable noodles. It looked decent, but he wasn't sure how it would taste. He picked up a few strands with chopsticks, blew on them a couple of times, and slurped them right in. Gu Jinan's eyes immediately lit up. Then he carefully took a sip of the soup, rich, but not greasy. He really wasn't hungry, don't believe it. Just look at the empty bowl. He stretched contentedly. So delicious. I never thought you could cook noodles this well. Xia Ange glanced at Gu Jinan and saw that he had already finished everything. It had taken less than 10 minutes, while she still had half a bowl left. Hearing his compliment, she simply replied with one word. But this time, her voice carried more emotion than any other time she had spoken to him. Gu Jinan knew his landlady was probably just that kind of person, an aloof goddess type. He looked toward the balcony. The night was dark, with only a crescent moon hanging there, set against a vast river of stars. Wait, a river of stars. A poem suddenly exploded in Gu Jinan's mind, one he had loved before, especially the last 2 lines, which were hailed as classics among classics. So much so that many people could only recite those 2. Thank for the noodles. Gu Jinan suddenly pushed back his chair and shouted to Xia Inch, his expression brimming with excitement. He had just thought of his competition entry. Xia Ange was eating her own cooking in small bites. It was a recipe her mother had taught her. She used to beg her mother to make it, so naturally she knew how to cook it. His sudden loud voice made her look up at him, but after saying just that one line, he rushed back to his room, leaving Xia Inch bewildered. Pursing her lips, Xia Inch continued eating her noodles in small bites. It took her over 20 minutes to finish the whole bowl. When she stood up, she saw that Gu Jinan's bowl and chopsticks were still on the table. He had gone straight back to his room without clearing them away. Xia Inch pouted, taking it as repayment for him, helping her clean up the broken glass from the shattered bowl. She walked over, picked up the bowl and chopsticks, and carried them into the kitchen with both hands. Gu Jinan returned to the room, sat directly in the chair, pulled up the notepad, and typed out text on it. Inscribed on Qingqiao Lake at Longyang. The west wind ripples the Dongting Lake old. Overnight the lady of the Xiang has hair turned white. Drunk, I forget the sky is in the water, the boat laden with pure dreams presses upon the Milky Way. Absolutely perfect. Gu Jinan looked with satisfaction at this poem borrowed from his original world. It was a 7-character quatrain, also known by the title Crossing Dongting Lake. The author was Tang Gong, a figure from the late Yuan dynasty. There are no historical records of this person's life, and among his surviving poems, this one is especially classic. In particular, the last 2 lines, drunk, I forget the sky is in the water, the boat laden with pure dreams presses upon the Milky Way, are a stroke of genius. They fully bring the poem to life, creating a scene of fantasy for countless readers. Many people know these lines by heart, yet even more don't know who wrote them or how the rest of the poem goes. What matters to them is the romance and imagination directly conveyed in those 2 lines, a beautiful tableau that satisfies their longing for a surreal, otherworldly realm. Just now, when he saw the vast expanse of stars and thought of the brilliant Milky Way, the last line suddenly came to him. The boat laden with pure dreams presses upon the Milky Way. Submit it. Go straight to the Chinese website platform, click the submission link, which jumps to the authentication page, and fill in all the information one by one. Here comes the main event. Submission, Crossing Dongting Lake. Author, Straight Man. This was Gu Jinan's original pen name. Simple and straight to the point. As for the content, naturally, the west wind ripples the Dongting Lake old. Overnight the lady of the Xiang has hair turned white. Drunk, I forget the sky is in the water, the boat laden with pure dreams presses upon the Milky Way. He silently comforted himself that he was helping the author spread the work in another world and turn it into a timeless masterpiece. Plagiarism? Bullshit. How can what a scholar does be called plagiarism? It's referencing, learning, spreading. After filling everything out, Gujanan directly clicked confirm, then confirm again. Submission successful. We look forward to your work achieving great results. Great results? Bullshit. Even if it doesn't get gold, at least it should snag a bronze. After all, Gujanan was eyeing that 50,000 yuan for gold like a hawk. The results will be updated and open for voting on July 1st. Today was already June 30th, and tomorrow morning would be July 1st, which is the deadline. Fortunately, he had browsed the current hot novels on the website today, or he would have missed it. Tonight, Gujanan paused his memory writing and continued aimlessly browsing the web for information about this world. He realized he still knew too little about it. That wasn't tea good, and it definitely wouldn't tea work out in the future. So tonight, he appropriately filled in the gaps. When he came across entertainment news, Gujanan instinctively prepared to scroll past, as usual, but a single word made his hand freeze on the mouse. His eyes locked onto a headline, one that wasn't tea in a prominent position clearly. For the entertainment news section, this sort of story wasn't tea considered very important. The news that could take up a prominent headline spot would definitely be things like a certain celebrity suspected of getting married, a certain celebrity spotted going out late at night with a man or a woman and not returning home, a certain celebrity breaking up again, or a certain celebrity cutting their finger and going to the hospital for anesthesia before putting on several band-aids, and so on. Without a sensational story, it couldn't make it to the trending topics, and naturally, it wouldn't take up the homepage. But what caught Gujanan's attention were the three characters, Xianji. The original headline read, Xianji, a sign singer from Starlight Interactive Entertainment, suspected of falling out with the company and being shelved, leaving in disgrace. As if possessed, Gujanan clicked on this entertainment news. When it finished loading, the first thing that caught his eye was a photo, a stunning girl in a floral dress, softly smiling at the camera. Gujanan's breath caught not just because he was moved by the smile in the picture, but also because the girl in the photo was his landlord, Xia Anj. She's a singer? She's actually a celebrity? How did I not know? Shocked and confused, Gujanan continued reading. A few minutes later, he finally understood why Xia Anj had suddenly appeared here. The gist of the article was that Xia Anj, as the runner-up of the famous talent show Happy Girls 2 years ago, should have been given key cultivation by Starlight Entertainment to help her quickly reach the threshold of a second-tier well-known idol singer using the popularity she gained during the show. But Starlight Entertainment did not do so. They only created some buzz for Xia Anj in the first half year, and then there was no news at all. In fact, Xia Anj still doesn't have a single original work of her own. According to information that reporters obtained from Starlight Entertainment, Xia Anj has already fallen out with Starlight Interactive, and the price of that fallout is that Starlight Interactive directly tore off the pretense, invoking the terms of the contract they signed with Xia Anj. If Xia Anj produces her own original work, Starlight Interactive will unconditionally help promote and produce an album for her. Conversely, if she fails to produce work, she must submit to Starlight Interactive's work arrangements. The agreement period is 3 months. Within 3 months, Xia Anj must have her own original work. If she cannot deliver after 3 months, she will have to return to Starlight Interactive and do as they command. After reading this, Gujanan felt a bit sorry for Xia Anj. She really had been shelved, a common tactic in the entertainment industry. This news was from 2 days ago, and Xia Anj had arrived here exactly 3 days ago in the evening. The timing matched perfectly. Gujanan also wondered why, when the previous Gujanan was around, the landlord wasn't the one signing the lease. He never expected she was a celebrity singer, although not very famous. She still had her own fan base. No wonder she had laid down the ground rules forbidding him from telling anyone that they lived together. Even if she was an obscure singer, she was still cautious just in case. He had seen firsthand in his past life how low the paparazzi could stoop. If someone with ill intentions found out that Xia Anj was sharing an apartment with a man in a small in-city apartment, the headline would definitely be, "Salt. Hidden singer Xia Anj actually has a boyfriend, and they're living together sweetly." Salt. Xia Anj, runner-up of Joyful Girl Voice 2 years ago, is already secretly married and living with her husband in an apartment in Lin City. That's just freaking ridiculous, to be honest. Two male celebrities going out for a late-night snack and putting an arm around each other's shoulders can be labeled as gay. Gu Jinan absolutely dared not think about it. Wasn't this like a ticking time bomb? But she's not famous. Look, I don't even recognize her. Gu Jinan thought again, but he didn't realize that the original Gu Jinan never paid attention to the entertainment industry. And since he had transmigrated, he was even less likely to follow it. He was good at listening to songs, watching movies, and reading novels. That was his only hobby in his past life. Let's just take it slowly for now. There's no other choice at this point. The rent still has months to go, so I can't exactly not live here. Even as she said this, knowing that an idol singer was living in the master bedroom, just across the hallway, made Gu Jinan's heart feel a bit flustered and unsettled. Finally unable to resist, Gu Jinan opened Huaku Music and typed Xia and Ji into the search bar. Hitting enter confirmed it, and over a dozen songs appeared, though they were all covers of classic singers' hits. Clicking on the first one, titled Missing You, a gentle melody slowly came through the earphones. Gu Jinan rarely turned the volume up to 80. The melody was warm, a signature song of an old veteran singer. I've forgotten how long it's been. A gentle, ethereal female voice slowly emerged as the lyrics reached the end of the countdown seconds. Gu Jinan was stunned. Instantly captivated, he never imagined someone who seemed so aloof could sing with such tenderness and emotion. This song was about missing one's family. Gu Jinan was completely moved by Xia and Ji's voice. He thought of his parents in his previous life, his dad always joking around, his mom a rather conservative woman. Though not wealthy, theirs had been a happy family for 20 years. In the blink of an eye, it was like a puff of smoke from the past. Gu Jinan's memory returned to the present world. In this world, his parents were factory workers in county town, working diligently for half their lives just to put Gu Jinan through college, buy a house, and see him married with children. They had no big dreams. In both lives, he was the only child, and in both lives, he enjoyed this warm love. How wonderful! After listening to it once, Gu Jinan clicked play again. He also opened the comments. There were many comments, over 10,000, proving that Xia Anji's singing was truly good. He looked at the most popular comments. It's really beautiful. I really miss home. I feel that the female voice is even more moving than the original male singer's voice. What makes a home? As long as my parents are there, that's home. Mom, Dad, I miss you. Xia Anji's singing is really too beautiful. Boo-hoo. She has the voice of an angel. Indeed, it's like an angel's voice. Gu Jinan agreed with the user's comment and generously gave it a like. He continued listening one after another, each song conveying a different mood. When the whole set ended, Gu Jinan felt a bit unsatisfied. He always thought that the first song, Missing You, had the most emotion poured into it by Xia Anj, and that song also had the most comments. Beautiful songs, beautiful person. As for her personality, Gu Jinan had no comment. It didn't seem like the same person. Who would have thought that someone so aloof and cool could sing with such passion? Who would believe it? He wondered if her fans knew she had this kind of personality. It suddenly occurred to him, with a hint of mischief. Even someone who sings so well could be shelved. Gu Jinan found it incredible. It seemed the entertainment industry was really deep and murky. As an uninformed spectator, Gu Jinan thought to himself. The weather nearing July was sweltering hot, especially since Gu Jinan wasn't in the habit of leaving the air conditioner on all night. He was used to setting a timer, so he was woken up by the heat. Speechless, he figured he'd set the timer for 1 more hour tonight, so he could wake up an hour later. Seeing it was 10 in the morning on his phone, Gu Jinan scratched his head. Pushing open the door, bleary-eyed, he saw Xia and Ji sitting cross-legged on the small rug in front of the living room sofa. The guitar she had brought that day lay flat on the sofa, a natural wood-colored one. On the tea table were sheets of white paper, and she was sketching something on one of them, probably writing a song. Gu Jinan already knew she was a pop idol singer and that she needed to have her own work within a certain time frame. Looking at the serene and practiced figure, he suppressed the urge to go over and ask, since the photos in the news couldn't lie. The girl with the gentle smile for the camera was none other than his landlord, Xia Ji. Naturally, Xia Ji also noticed Gu Jinan coming out. The summer was stifling, and staying in her room gave her no inspiration at all, so she had come out to the living room. Occasionally gazing at the blue sky and white clouds beyond the balcony helped her mood. The balcony in her room was blocked by a wall, making it feel more oppressive. While she ignored Gu Jinan, she was also a bit curious how come this person didn't have to go to work, staying in his room every day. What did he do? She naturally didn't know that Gu Jinan's job was as an online novel author who never needed to go out to work. He was a total homebody. Xia and always had an idea in her mind, a very brief melody, like a hum tune, also a song about summer. It was a melody that had started to emerge in her mind a while ago, but she couldn't grasp the summer, nor the thoughts of summer. But now, apart from a hint of restlessness and heat, she had no thoughts at all. After washing up, Gu Jinan took a bottle of milk and a bun from the fridge. Inside the fridge, the boundary was clearly drawn. The Chu army occupied most of the territory, while the Han army only had the left side. She had also arranged things in her own way. Gu Jinan found it amusing because their arrangements were almost identical. He put milk on the top shelf, and she also put milk on the top shelf. Today would be payday for his manuscript fees. Last night he checked and saw over 9,000 yuan, almost 10,000 a month. Compared to his previous life as an office drone, this life was simply too happy. He still had over 10,000 yuan left for himself, so he planned to transfer 10,000 to his parents and keep the rest. Gu Jinan intended to let his parents in their county hometown stop working, since factory wages in the county were meager, and the work was both grueling and exhausting. He was about to head out to make the transfer, but his parents couldn't use smartphones and could only accept bank transfers. Gu Jinan thought he'd definitely teach them how to use smartphones when he went home, so they could video call him and such in the future. As he passed through the living room, Gu Jinan finally couldn't help but stop. The sunlight from the balcony stretched his shadow long, spilling onto the paper where Xia and Ji was writing and drawing with her head down. She looked up a bit puzzled. Her delicate face was flushed with a warm, rosy hue, and her hair was swept to one side. Ahem, landlord, are you an idol singer or something? Gu Jinan looked a little embarrassed. After all, his curiosity drove him to ask. Xia and Ji didn't expect him to ask that. She thought for a moment before replying to Gu Jinan. I'm a singer, not an idol. Her voice was still cool and aloof. Oh, same thing, same thing. Having received an answer, Gu Jinan nodded. She really did sing beautifully, especially that song. Missing you had struck right into his heart. Then he explained further. I just happened to see your news online. No other meaning. Having a landlord who sings so well is something to be proud of. But it seemed like he couldn't tell anyone. Thinking of this, Gu Jinan quickly waved his hands. I won't tell anyone, rest assured. I was just using a metaphor, you know? What the hell am I even saying? Gu Jinan felt like an idiot. Xia and just didn't look up at Gu Jinan again, only indifferently hummed an acknowledgement to show she understood. Gu Jinan felt like a fool, but at least his curiosity was satisfied, so that was something. The scene fell into silence, as if the air was filled with the scent of awkwardness. Gu Jinan remembered he still had things to do and quickly fled the scene. Under the scorching sun, Gu Jinan came out of the bank with a thin sheen of sweat on his forehead. Why did he have to come out in the afternoon? How stupid of him. He took out his phone and dialed his dad's number. After a few short beeps, a surprised middle-aged voice came through the receiver. Jinan, Dad, you're not working today, right? The response came smoothly, as if it were only natural. Gu Jinan had inherited the original Gu Jinan's memories and naturally accepted everything about him. The person on the other end of the line was his father. Yeah, it's Sunday, so your mom and I are off. How's work lately? Guji initially wanted to ask about his son's life, but what came out was a question about work. Maybe that was every father's way of saying one thing, but meaning another. Gu Jinan smiled as he walked along the wide sidewalk. It's okay, income is stable. I just transferred 10,000 yuan to your bank card. Take some time to check it out. From now on, you and Mom don't need to work at the factory anymore. I can support both of you. The Legend of Qin was already in its final stages, wrapping up by the end of July at the latest. Once Chinese Paladin was uploaded afterward, regardless of how much it would earn, it would definitely elevate his lifestyle by several notches. Upon hearing this, Guji frowned and said with a hint of reproach, 10,000? You've only been working for a few months. You need to have some money on you. Your mom and I work in the county town and can support ourselves. We don't need you to support us yet. Is that Gu Jinan on the phone? A pleasantly surprised voice came from the other end. It was Gu Jinan's mother, Chenru, a doting mom. Seeing his wife return, Guji turned on the speakerphone on his old man phone and said to Gujinan, "Your mom's back from grocery shopping." "So, Mom." Gujinan laughed heartily, rubbing his nose. His mother had always been extremely indulgent toward him since he was a child. Even if his father wanted to scold him, he'd get chewed out by her, let alone lay a hand on him. Because of this, Guji often muttered, "Spoiling a child ruins them." But he was helpless and could only stew in his own frustration. "Why are you sending money back? Do you have enough for yourself?" Shinru was shocked to learn that Gujinan had actually sent money back. "No, old Gu. Hurry up and go transfer the money back to our son and send an extra 2,000 more." Guji felt a headache coming on. A doting mother spoils the child, indeed. Gujinan was deeply moved and had to slowly explain to his mother that his job was very stable now, earning several thousand a month, so he had no worries about food or expenses. He even wanted them to quit their jobs and let him support them. The more Chinru heard, the more satisfied she became. A smile kept spreading across her face as she humphed at Guji, meaning, Look, my son, the one I gave birth to." Guji had no way to argue. Did he have no credit at all? However, regarding the matter of quitting their jobs, both Guji and Chunru disagreed. "Your mother and I enjoy working quite a bit. You've just started working, so don't get complacent. Work harder. Also, don't send us money next month. Keep it for yourself to buy a house or something. Your mother and I have saved up some money over the years, and we can help you then." Guji said into the phone, and Chunru nodded in agreement on the side. "That's right, your dad and I can support ourselves. A boy out there should have his own savings. Also, you're not young anymore. You should find a girlfriend. I want to hold a grandchild soon." Huh. Gujinan didn't expect his mom's mind to be so active, jumping straight to finding a girlfriend. He had no interest in that at all right now. "Mom, I'm still young, no rush. I'm single and proud." Guji also didn't quite agree with Chanru's idea. He said into the phone, "Work comes first, but if you find someone suitable, give it a try. Don't end up an old bachelor." "Who are you calling an old bachelor? You old fool. Go wash the vegetables." Chinru was instantly upset. Who talks about their own son like that? "Dad, you don't get it. That's called being a lone wolf." Gujinan muttered to himself, then chatted a bit more with his mom, telling her to take care of their health, and that he would visit them when he had time. Chinru, on the other hand, urged her son to eat and drink well, not to deprive himself, because in her eyes, her son came first, no matter what. While still on the phone with his parents, Gujinan had already returned to his apartment. He took out his keys from his pocket and unlocked the door. The quiet figure inside merely shifted positions, and the guitar that had been lying flat on the sofa moved to her side. "Mom, Dad, I'm going to work now. I'll call you two next time," Gujinan said into the phone. His writing routine for today hadn't started yet, nor had it begun last night. "Don't call too often if nothing is up. All right, call us often when you have time." The couple clearly had conflicting opinions. Gujinan felt that his dad's dinner tonight was ruined. His dad couldn't win against his mom, didn't he know his mom's temper well enough? After the earlier awkwardness, Gujinan wisely chose not to speak to Xianji again. He just glanced at the figure busy operating something on a laptop, then returned to his own room. As the door closed, Xianji's gaze finally left the laptop screen, staring absently at the manuscript paper in front of her. He had just been on the phone with his parents, and while the word parents was so familiar and warm to everyone else, it was utterly strange to her, because she was a child no one wanted. The only one who wanted her, the one who gave her a name, was no longer here. A touch of sadness lingered on her delicate face. She truly missed her mother Xia, and she also missed the orphanage where she had grown up. It seemed that in this world, she was completely alone. Taking a deep breath, Xia pulled herself together. What she needed to do now was gain freedom, and the way to freedom was to turn the melody in her mind into a song. Back in his room, Gujinan uploaded the latest chapter to the Chinese website and was about to continue writing The Legend of Sword and Fairy when he noticed a site message. He clicked to open it. It was a message from the Poetry Society. His poem, Crossing Daunting, had successfully appeared on the Poetry Society's dedicated webpage. Should he go ahead and vote for himself? The competition system is determined by the voting results of netizens and the evaluation of the expert and professor panels, so the votes for netizens play a significant role. The preliminary evaluation lasts 7 days, relying mostly on netizen voting. On the 8th day, the re-evaluation begins with analysis from the expert and professor panels. The final evaluation is basically the awards ceremony. Thinking about this, Gu Jinan directly opened the poetry competition's webpage to vote for himself. He believed he wasn't the only one doing this, so he didn't consider himself shameless. Yes, not shameless at all. Can a scholar's vote be called shameless? It's called confidence. Opened it. My work is here, quite prominent. I'll vote directly. Everyone has 2 votes, and a second vote will refresh on the 3rd day. Gu Jinan cheerfully cast a vote for his own crossing Dongting Lake. He was secretly delighted that his work ranked so high, then paused. Why was my work so high up? He looked again at the vote count. He gasped sharply. 8,000 votes. Ranked first. Terrifyingly so. Tang Gong, the great master, is mighty. Gu Jinan was mentally cheering on the original poet. How ruthless. Gu Jinan checked the time. The poem went live at 11 a.m. this morning, and it was now 2 p.m., 3 hours, and already 8,000 votes. Indeed, cultured and romantic people are the same in any world. Awesome. Gu Jinan glanced at the second-place entry, titled Early Summer, which had 6,000 votes. He had pulled ahead by a full 2,000 votes. Trembling with excitement, he slowly clicked open the Poetry Forum's comment section. The first thing that caught his eye was the discussion thread for Crossing Dongting Lake, which already had tens of thousands of replies, the most popular poetry thread of all, and new comments were pouring in nonstop. Drunk, I didn't know the sky was in the water, the boat, full of clear dreams pressed down on the Milky Way. Oh, I can already picture that scene. So beautiful. The author is so romantic. A boat full of clear dreams pressing down on the Milky Way. I'm completely in love. I'm going to print out this poem. I've already set the last 2 lines as my status signature. I love them so much. When I read this poem, I feel as if I'm not mooring a boat on Dongting Lake, but rowing on the Milky Way, surrounded by a world of sparkling stars. It's like a dream. Damn, why don't I have that kind of imagery? I just thought it was good. I'm going to call people over to see what real poetry looks like. Same here. Let them see what romance means. Upstairs, I've already copied it down to use for flirting. Hey, flirt guy. I was about to say the same thing, me too. Gu Jinan scrolled through the comments. Besides praising the beauty and imagery of the poem, some netizens were even planning to use it to pick up girls. But there were also a few who offered their own interpretations of the poem. The poet writes of dreams so beautifully, enchanting like a fairy tale. But it's just a dream when you wake. All that remains is boundless melancholy. The first 2 lines describe sorrowful autumn, perhaps accompanied by the lament of being born at the wrong time and having unrealized ambitions. The last 2 lines, as if drunk, express longing for the dream and fantasies of this fairy tale, contrasting with one's dissatisfaction with reality. So every line is essential. Without the foundation of the first 2, there would be no stunning beauty of lying drunk on a boat and dreaming of the Milky Way. Thank you, the author named Jinan, for letting me feel such beautiful poetry. I've read many poems about dreams, but none are as fresh, strange, and beautiful as this one, expressing multiple emotions yet full of romanticism. With a light touch and no trace of stiffness, this is a work of art. The author Jinan is truly amazing. Ahem. Gu Jinan didn't blush or flinch. He was indirectly helping the author pass this poem down through the ages. As for these people's praise, Gu Jinan accepted it on behalf of the original author. To his surprise, he saw his own book fans here. Gu Jinan found their comments a bit speechless. This was absolutely slander. I know who Straight Guy is. This dude is the author of The Bright Moon of Qin. I've been reading this book, and the damn author keeps padding the word count every day. I'm reporting him with my real name. Yeah, this straight guy bastard takes advantage of our love every day and half-asses everything. He has time to write poems, but not to update his novel. A single scene gets dragged out for days. Damn it. Come on, Straight Guy is still pretty good. At least he updates daily. And I never expected him to write such beautiful poems drunk. I mistook the sky for the lake under the stars. Sob. I'm crying. I love it so much. Seeing multiple comments exposing his identity on the Chinese web novel platform, Gu Jinan felt a bit speechless. There was no need for such exposure. Anyone who wanted to dig it up would find it anyway, since the info for Crossing Dongting Lake clearly stated he was an author on the platform. Just as he was browsing the comments, his poem's votes surged by over 2,000 in the poll, bringing the total past 10,000. It was truly a runaway lead. When Gu Jinan closed the comment thread, he was startled to see the numbers. He was already 3,000 votes ahead of second place, while third place had around 6,000 votes. Crossing Lake Daunting leads by a wide margin with 11,000 votes. Second is Early Summer with over 8,300 votes. Viewing the Sea has over 5,600 votes. Mulberry by the Path has over 5,400 votes. Watching Sunrise from Mount Huang has over 5,300 votes. Spring Dawn has over 5,100 votes. Yangzhou Lyrics has exactly 5,000 votes. Unfulfilled Ambitions has over 4,800 votes. Labor has over 4,700 votes. 100 Years of Solitude has over 4,400 votes. The top 10 poems are all close in votes, tightly contested except for Gu Jinan's Crossing Lake Dongting, which stands in a league of its own. And this week-long appreciation and critique session has only just begun. Gu Jinan decided not to pay any more attention to the changes on the poetry website. He needed to focus on writing and not disappoint his beloved readers and fans again. He absolutely would not pad the word count anymore if he did, pretend he never said that. But Gu Jinan's indifference didn't mean that those who liked Crossing Daunting were indifferent. Many began to repost Crossing Daunting, pairing it with the line drunk, unaware the sky lies in the water, or the boat's clear dreams blanket the starry river. This amazed more people, who asked about its origin, and then flocked to the Poetry Society's website to cast their votes. Another group followed the name Straight Man, the author of Crossing Daunting, to Gu Jinan's book, leaving comments in the latest chapters and generously offering tips. The fame of the Bright Moon of Qin grew on the Chinese website, even appearing on the tipping leaderboard, which puzzled many. Clicking in, they saw it was an old book with many chapters already written, previously unremarkable, but now suddenly exploding, yet they couldn't find anything new about it. And Crossing Daunting even appeared on Weibo's trending topics, occupying the third or fourth spot. People saw the hashtag drunk, unaware the sky lies in the water, or the boat's clear dreams blanket the starry river. Drawn by these lines, they continued to learn more, eventually ending up either on the Poetry Society's website or on Gu Jinan's book page on the Chinese website. What? The most beautiful lines of poetry have suddenly appeared. A romantic and dreamlike poem. A poem with ordinary first two lines, but the last two lines are breathtaking. All kinds of headlines emerged, and in a short time, the Poetry Society was pushed onto the hot search list, its visibility abruptly raised several notches thanks to a single poem. Cheng Mingxi, the head of the Poetry Society, was also somewhat bewildered at first. They hadn't done much promotion, only promoted it between the Chinese website and poetry websites, with little to no promotion on other platforms. And now it had made it to the trending searches. When she learned it was because of a poem, she was even more surprised. She had been too busy today to visit the Poetry Society's website or see the current rankings, so now she had to go and take a look. She was dressed in a business suit with a pair of gold-rimmed glasses, the perfect image of a sophisticated and mature woman. Drunk, I did not know the sky is in the water. The boat is filled with clear dreams pressing on the Milky Way. Having murmured these two lines, Cheng Mingxi gazed at the poem in a daze, but in her mind appeared a brilliant Milky Way. She lay on her back on the Milky Way, half drunk and half awake. So beautiful. She also checked the current rankings. Crossing Lake Daunting had over 90,000 votes, while the second place, Early Summer, had a mere 60,000 votes. How could it compare? Has the person in charge at the Poetry Network been informed? Cheng Mingxi said to the staff member beside her. The person shook his head. Not sure. We only reported it when we noticed something was off. This poem is just too good, the person said helplessly. Cheng Mingxi suddenly smiled. She slowly said, this person is an author on our Chinese literature network. I just received a report that one of our site's books suddenly jumped up the tipping list. They suspected someone was deliberately gaming the list, but now it seems those who have seen the poem are flocking to it. Originally, when we co-hosted this poetry conference, the Poetry Network thought we couldn't possibly win the top prize. At most, we might get 1 or 2 bronze medals. Even though it was jointly organized, we were merely a supporting act. But now it seems they miscalculated. Cheng Mingxi was one of the organizers of this poetry event on the Chinese Literature Network, and as an insider, she naturally felt displeased seeing the arrogant tone of the Poetry Network. Now, witnessing this scene, she felt an immense sense of relief, especially since Early Summer was written by a professor from the Poetry Network. Others might not know it, but she sure did. Strictly adhere to the appreciation rules. Once any malicious vote rigging or similar behavior is discovered, delete the work immediately. Cheng Mingxi directly issued the order to the staff nearby. This poem, Crossing Dongting Lake, far surpassed all other entries in the competition in terms of both verses and artistic conception. She wouldn't allow it to be tainted. In the evening, in a traditional courtyard compound in Jingdu City with a strong classical atmosphere, a pretty girl holding a tablet walked to the foot of a tree in the yard, where an elderly man was sitting in a rattan chair, enjoying the cool breeze. "Grandpa, don't you want to see the ranking of your early summer?" The old man slowly opened his eyes, gazing at the young girl beside him with affection, and said, "What's the matter, little Yin? Rankings are something I've never really cared about." The old man was Du Guangyu, the 10th generation descendant of Du Fu, the poet sage of this world. He was utterly devoted to the study of poetry, with a love for verses that ran deep in his bones. He was also one of the presidents of the Huaxia Poetry Association and one of the founders of the poetry website. Du Xiaoman, however, said with a playful grin, "Hee, I knew Grandpa would say that. But what if I told you that not only are you not first, but you're tens of thousands of votes behind, and even your beloved granddaughter didn't vote for you?" Du Guangyu didn't care at first, but when he heard he was tens of thousands of votes behind and that even his granddaughter hadn't voted for him, he couldn't sit still. His interest immediately piqued, and he spoke up. "Let me see." He was no stranger to the idea that the waves of the Yangtze River drive forward those behind. Back then, his poem Late Winter had utterly crushed his father's work, and in the end his father had to admit his inferiority. Taking the tablet, Du Guangyu first saw his own work, Early Summer, clearly ranked second, with over 80,000 votes. That wasn't bad, wasn't it? How many more could it pull in? There was only one poem at the top. The old man scanned it again and was stunned. His eyes widened slightly. 130,000 votes? How is that possible? He immediately sat up straight, and with trembling hands, he slowly clicked on that poem titled Crossing Dongting Lake. "The west wind ages the waves of Dongting." The old man read aloud word by word as he looked. This was his attitude toward poetry. A true master always maintains the heart of a student. After reading the first line, the old man showed no strong reaction, only thinking that the use of historical references was good. He then moved on to the next line. "In one night, the Xiang River goddess grew many white hairs." When the old man finished this line, combined with the mood of the previous line, he was quite moved. The white-haired Xiang River goddess. Legend says that upon hearing Emperor Shun had died in the wilderness of Kanwu, she could not catch up to him and wept until her tears stained the bamboo with spots. How poignant. Very good. The old man did not stint on his praise. After drinking, unaware that heaven lies in the water, when the old man finished reading this line, his breathing quickened slightly. He didn't rush to interpret himself, but immediately looked to the next line, because he felt the next line must be a perfect match for the previous one after all. The third line didn't connect strongly with the first two. "Brimming the boat with a lucid dream, pressing upon the starry river." After reciting it, Du Guangyu felt as if he had drifted into a dreamland among the Milky Way, with a radiant river of stars flowing beside him. Half drunk and half awake, he lingered, reluctant to leave a dream like a fairy tale. Excellent. Absolutely excellent. After reading, Du Guangyu looked at Du Xiaoyan with a flushed face. He held the tablet and savored the poem once more, then said to his granddaughter, "I thought each generation produces its own talents, but I never imagined such brilliance." The first two lines of this poem seem to express unappreciated talent and evening sorrow, but the last two lines are pure genius. They lift the entire poem to a new level, painting a dreamlike world of fantasy, romantic, and ethereal. Du Xiaoyan heard her grandfather's analysis and instantly felt that the poem's artistic conception had been elevated even further. She murmured the last two lines under her breath. "Drunk, I did not know the skies and the water the boat is filled with clear dreams pressing on the Milky Way." Which member of the Poetry Association wrote this poem? Du Guanyu asked, eager to discuss the art of poetry with the author. Surely, the person who could compose such romantic verses must be a person of great wisdom. Snapped back to reality by her grandfather's words, Du Xiaoyan snorted and said, Grandpa, you guessed wrong. The author isn't from our Poetry Association, it's a novelist from Chinese Literature Network. What? Du Guanyu was momentarily taken aback. When the Chinese Literature Network had first approached the Poetry Association to collaborate on a poetry appreciation event, he had been honest, he didn't think the network had much to offer in terms of poetry. After all, writing poetry required inspiration, immersion, and reading a vast amount of classical verse. The Poetry Association, which accompanied poetry every day, clearly had the advantage. But now, indeed, the waves behind drive on those before, and new talents emerge in each generation. I suppose I'm truly getting old. Du Guanyu's early summer was also an idea he'd been nursing for a long time, revised repeatedly until he finally felt satisfied with it. For this reason, when the poetry gatherings call for submissions began, he also joined in not for any other reason, but to let the power of poetry touch more people. I never expected a gold medal work to appear on the very first day. Du Guanyu lay back down on the rattan chair, closed his eyes, and slowly recited Passing Dongting Lake, once again immersing himself in this unparalleled romantic dream. He actually felt like having a drink, wanting to experience the real sensation of being too drunk to know the sky is reflected in the water. Du Xiaoyan opened her little mouth slightly, a bit surprised, and said, Grandpa, your early summer is also very, very good. It's only just begun. Didn't you teach me from a young age never to give up? Du Guanyu opened his eyes and glared at Du Xiaoyan, blowing his beard and saying, Little girl, what do you know? This poem can become a timeless masterpiece. The last two lines alone are worthy of being revered as classics. After saying that, he ignored Du Xiaoyan and closed his eyes to rest, only muttering to himself, Drunk, I know not the sky and the water, murmuring softly that he wanted a drink. Du Xiaoyan pursed her lips, merely trying to comfort the old man. But the truth was, she was utterly captivated the moment she laid eyes on that poem. Thinking about her own submission, Spring Dawn, still struggling down the rankings though it made the top 10, its votes were nowhere near Grandpa's and Crossing Dongting Lakes. And she had even cast her own vote for Crossing Dongting Lake. The author was a straight-laced guy. How can name so cliché produce such a romantic poem? She was really looking forward to the final evaluation, where authors had to show up in person. She hoped he'd be a handsome hunk. While Du Guanyu was savoring Crossing Dongting Lake, news also reached the Poetry Association, because the poem was now an absolute wildfire, spreading across every corner of the internet. They couldn't ignore it, even if they wanted to. And when they finished reading Crossing Dongting Lake, their expressions were almost identical to Du Guanyu's, all of them stunned that an author from a Chinese web novel platform could create such a work, and equally awed by the dreamscape the poem painted. The inspired stroke of genius breathed life into the entire piece. The last two lines could truly be called timeless classics. Only a few young people were unconvinced, believing that he had just gotten lucky, perhaps by sheer chance. He was Quan Zhizhuan, the creator of Mulberry on the Lane and the grandson of another founder of the Poetry Association. His work was currently ranked third with over 79,000 votes, only slightly behind Du Guanyu's Early Summer, but already more than double the votes behind Crossing Dongting Lake. If nothing unexpected happened, he had no chance of catching up. Quan Zhizhuan himself had wanted to surpass Early Summer and take the top spot. After all, although this poetry event was co-organized with Chinese Web, everyone saw it as an internal competition among the Poetry Association. But now, an unknown author from Chinese Web had left everyone far behind, and his poem was hailed as a timeless masterpiece. Quan Zhizhuan was deeply unconvinced. Gu Jinan himself had no idea that the poetry event had nearly gone viral across the internet. He swore he was really focused on outlining the remaining plot of The Legend of Sword and Fairy, and also his Qin's Moon was in its late stages. He needed to start planning the finale. Apart from occasionally paying attention to the clear sound of a guitar coming from outside the door, he was really focused. The guitar playing is intermittent, seems like they're stuck on a part. I can totally relate, just like a small-time author's hitting a writer's block, so hard it's ridiculous. Gu Jinan had already heard the same melody outside at least 10 times. It carried a sense of melancholy mixed with a touch of carefreeness. In his past life, he had learned guitar in college, back when his dorm mates all said learning guitar was twice the effort for half the result when it came to picking up girls. But later he found out fairy tales were all lies. No matter how hard he strummed, his goddess still ended up in that flashy Mercedes. So he gave up. Later on, someone he couldn't remember who said learning piano made you look elegant and classy, and girls like that kind of guy. How could young, hot-blooded Gu Jinan resist that? He promptly signed up for a piano club at school, diligently put in a few months, only to find himself played for a fool a second time. Despair outweighed sadness. From then on, Gu Jinan just coasted through life, no longer believing that this could win over girls or that could show off. By now, he had forgotten most of it. Gu Jinan found it somewhat amusing. Maybe if he picked up a guitar again, he wouldn't even be able to play a single note, let alone touch the piano. It seemed there was a piano in Xia Ange's room. He had heard the sound of playing coming from there yesterday. So singers are just good at everything? Gu Jinan checked the time. Unknowingly, he had been sitting in front of the computer for 5 hours. It was already evening, but sporadic guitar sounds could still be heard from outside. Her perseverance was quite strong. It had been almost a day, hadn't it? But supposedly, she was being forced by her company with no choice. If she couldn't produce any work, she'd be treated like a tool. It was even more unbearable than corporate overtime. Gu Jinan felt a bit of sympathy for this aloof landlord. Huh? Holy shit. Gu Jinan habitually checked the web novel platform after finishing his writing every time. But this time, when he opened it, the author's message board kept popping up with notifications, leaving him stunned. The site allowed private messages, and users could freely turn off that feature. But Gu Jinan rarely received any private messages, just a few every now and then from enthusiastic readers urging him to update. Now, though, there were at least hundreds of them. What's going on? Gu Jinan clicked on a few and couldn't help but find it amusing. They were all people from the poetry forum who had directly messaged him, heaping praise on his romantic verses. Like this one. Author, you're freaking awesome. I use this to confess my love, and if it works, I'll come back and tip you big time. And these. Bro, you're too good. You've really put Chinese web novels on the map. You doubled the votes of the poetry forum's entries. Drunk, not knowing the sky is in the water, absolutely brilliant. Love you, author, I love you. This young lady has taken a liking to you. Here's my contact info. I hope you know what's good for you and reach out to me. Then we'll have a story. Gu Jinan didn't know how to respond. There were too many messages. He just clicked mark all as read and turned off private messages. When he finished, he suddenly noticed something different about his author dashboard. He clicked in and gasped. Today's royalties actually showed over 60,000. What the hell? He quickly opened the backend data for The Legend of Qin and saw that it was all tips converted from Chinese coins from this afternoon until now. A never-ending list of usernames had tipped. Looking at the donation list again, the Qin Moon had actually made it into the top 3. How terrifyingly impressive. Then checking the chapter comments, there were over 10,000 of them. Clicking in, it was still a flood of people stopping by to pay their respects, with comments like, "From the author of Crossing Dongting, was here. Came from Weibo. The poem is beautiful. The novel's not so great. But since you could write such a gorgeous poem, here's a donation." This actually works? Aside from the joking ones, most were discussing his Crossing Dongting. Only after scrolling through countless comments did Gu Jinan find a few original readers who were actually commenting on the novel itself. Kating. Gu Jinan excitedly clicked open the Poetry Society's website, and his eyes almost turned into crescent moons as he grinned from ear to ear. Crossing Dongting had 180,000 votes. Early Summer had 100,000 votes, still leading by a tiny margin. Kaching again. If nothing unexpected happened, he was guaranteed to take that 50,000 gold prize. Plus the skyrocketing donation royalties from today, he'd be making 100,000 a month. Holy crap. He had never seen that much money at once in his entire past life. Gu Jinan opened Weibo and found that the 8th trending topic was indeed Crossing Dongting Lake, a timeless romance. Clicking on it revealed a series of hot topics. The poetry conference reveals the most romantic lines. The breathtaking imagery of drunk, I no longer know the sky is in the water my boat full of clear dreams weighs down the Milky Way. Dreamlike poetic lines, worthy of being a timeless masterpiece. Under each headline, netizens voiced their opinions, all unanimously praising the romance of the poem. With drunk, I no longer know the sky is in the water my boat full of clear dreams weighs down the Milky Way dominating the conversation. Gujinan knew how classic these two lines were, just like he had said before. In the original world, many people might not know the poem's title or the first two lines, but they were certainly familiar with the last two, because you truly could see these two lines everywhere. He never expected such a grand scene to unfold here as well. Master Tangong, this prosperous era is exactly as you wished. Gujinan calmed his emotions and decided to reward his lovely readers with an extra chapter today, also as a way to explain himself, so as not to let the gossip-loving crowd down. He absolutely did not want to ride on the wave of popularity, nor did he want to make easy money, upload, then finally add his own words. Straight man, an extra chapter today, by the way. To friends who came over from the poetry gathering, your enthusiasm has burned like a raging fire in my heart. Crossing Daunting Lake was written on a whim, and I never expected it to resonate so deeply with everyone. Heaven has gifted me with talents, and it truly hasn't let me down. Enjoy yourselves. Mu, upolat. Many netizens were still shuttling between the Chinese literature website and the poetry gathering. And when they refreshed the site, they found that the author straight man of Crossing Daunting Lake had updated a novel chapter. They hurriedly clicked in to read, and after seeing the final PS, they found it highly comical, and they discovered that there was another golden line in it. Heaven has gifted me with talents. I'm dying of laughter, burning my heart. The author is so adorable. And this line, heaven has gifted me with talents, really speaks to me. I also believe that heaven has gifted me with talents. Rewarded. Love it, love it. Heaven has given me talents. They shall be used. I'm going to use this as my motivational quote. Oh my God, he's dropped another golden quote. Heaven has given me talents. They shall be used. Yes, heaven has given me talents. They shall be used. Thank you, author. After I successfully pass the exam, I'll come back to repay my wish. Thus, the line heaven has given me talents. They shall be used, once again exploded onto the hot search, pushing the waning popularity of Crossing Lake Daunting back onto the trending list. When Gujinan came out, Xia and had already returned to her room. Only the unspring-back indent on the living room sofa proved that a girl with a graceful figure had been sitting there just moments ago. Back in her room, Xia and sat dazedly by the piano, in a bad mood. She hadn't found any inspiration at all. Her mind was still stuck on that same melody. No more, no less. Ring, ring. Xia and picked up the phone somewhat bewilderedly. Not many people called her. Checking the name, it was Ruan Ying. She answered, and Ruan Ying's excited voice immediately came through the line. Sister Ange? As if understanding Xia Ange's temperament, Ruan Ying continued. I heard they said Mr. Qixing will leave Puhai City for Linqing City tomorrow. Sister Ange, are you still in Linhai City? The fact that Qixing was leaving Puhai meant he had finished writing the song for Chu Taoyu, so naturally he would go. Xia Ange felt a hint of bitterness in her heart. She was just a third-rate singer shelved by her company, to put it bluntly. Even her roommate didn't know who she was. And Qixing was a well-known music producer in the industry. Would he really help her? Deep down, Xia Ange actually wished she had a professional musician to discuss things with. She had no clue what to do with the melody she had written, but if a professional could offer some inspiration, it would be a huge help to her. Are you listening, Sister Ange? Ruan Ying found it strange that she hadn't heard a reply from Xia Ange for a while, not even an mm. Finally a response. Ruan Ying felt relieved and immediately started telling Xia Ange about today's trending topics on Weibo. Ange, let me tell you, today a beautiful poem called Crossing Daunting Lake suddenly appeared on Weibo's trending list. It's really wonderful, especially the last two lines. Drunk, I do not know the sky is in the water the boat is filled with clear dreams pressing on the Milky Way. Like a fairy tale. Drunk, I do not know the sky is in the water. Xia Ange murmured softly. Then Ruan Ying said she would apply for leave soon and wanted to visit Xia Ange. Xia Ange didn't agree but didn't refuse either. She had few friends, and Ruan Ying was one of them. Being lonely for too long always made her want someone to talk to. Even though Xia Ange was mostly the listener, After hanging up, Xia and sat quietly on the piano stool. Seeing the notebook placed on the table beside her, she shifted over. She opened the notebook, logged onto Weibo, and clicked on the trending topics. The second trending topic was crossing Daunting Lake. She clicked it, saw various headlines, and also the original poem that Ruan Ing had praised endlessly from a poetry competition hosted by Chinese Literature Network and Poetry Network. After softly reciting the entire poem, Xia Ange was a bit stunned. This poem was truly beautiful, as if stepping into a dream. Yet with a modern romanticism, dreams pressing down on the Milky Way, the artistic conception was exquisite. Heaven gave me talents, and they shall be used. Xia Ange saw a line in the latest discussion, which seemed to be from the same author of Crossing Daunting Lake. Everyone felt the inspirational nature of this line, as if it were filled with uplifting power. That was exactly what Xia Ange was thinking at that moment. Heaven gave me talents, and they shall be used. She slowly strengthened her resolve. Then, after a moment's thought, she took out paper and pen and carefully wrote on the white paper. Before long, the elegant handwriting on the paper was exactly that line. The popularity of the poetry gathering, following the sudden emergence of Gu Jinan's 7-character quatrain, Crossing Daunting Lake, only gradually subsided over the next 3 or 4 days. However, those 2 lines drunk, I did not know the sky were in the water, a boat full of clear dreams pressed down on the Milky Way, were widely used in later times, truly becoming a masterpiece passed down through generations. Over the past few days, Gu Jinan had also cast his second vote. By now, his poem Crossing Daunting Lake had left the competition far behind, with an astonishing 720,000 votes. The second-place poem, Early Summer, had only 300,000 votes, and the rest were even further behind, completely unable to threaten Gu Jinan's lead. He hadn't expected such a crushing victory, and could only sigh softly. It's lonely at the top. During these days, Gu Jinan noticed that Xia Anji was often leaving early and returning late, sometimes not coming back until nearly midnight when he heard the door open. Although it seemed a bit odd, Gu Jinan didn't bother to check after all. They had agreed not to interfere in each other's lives. With the preliminary evaluation over, Gu Jinan felt very satisfied. Riding on the popularity of Crossing Daunting Lake, his novel, The Bright Moon of Qin, was also gaining momentum, attracting many new followers. This would certainly help when he later released Walking in the Snow, giving it more exposure. But the most important thing was his monthly royalties from tips alone amounted to a whopping 80,000 yuan. 80,000 yuan. Gu Jinan was grinning like a fool. If the bonus for Crossing Daunting were also awarded directly, he would be worth 100,000. How many overtime shifts would that have taken in his past life? Truly, knowledge is power. Ring ring. Gu Jinan's phone suddenly rang. It was an unfamiliar number. Hello. Hello, is this Gu Jinan? The voice on the other end was female and quite pleasant to hear. Yes. Who is this? Hello, Gu Jinan. I'm Cheng Mengshi, the person in charge of the Chinese Literary Network's Poetry Conference. The second round of judging for the conference will be held in person at the Kyoto Poetry Association 3 days from now. In essence, you'll need to present an analysis so people can understand the meaning behind your creation of Crossing Daunting. The voice on the other end rattled off a long explanation. Gu Jinan caught 2 key points. First, a live judging session in Kyoto in 3 days. Second, he had to produce a reading comprehension. This was a bit tough for him after all. He was just borrowing the work. How was he supposed to know what the great Tang Gong was feeling or try to express back then? Are you listening? Huh? Yes, I'm here. At my WeChat, it's this number. I'm also the chief editor of our Chinese Literature Network. Young man, your poem is good. You've brought honor to the network. Cheng Mengshi rarely praised anyone, mainly because Gu Jinan's poem was really good, and it had greatly honored the Chinese Literature Network at this poetry conference. Okay, Gu Jinan agreed, while thinking. When he'd read this poem before, he had indeed seen some analyses, but his memories were quite fuzzy, unsure if he could recall them. Hey, this money isn't so easy to get. After adding him on WeChat, the other side sent a smiley emoji and shortly after sent another message. See you in 3 days. By then, the top 10 poems will all get a chance for publication, but your Crossing Daunting Lake should be more than just one of them. Gu Jinan looked at the message on his phone, not expecting that the first thing to be published would be a poem. not one of his excellent novels. 3 days later, the time wasn't tight. Gu Jinan opened a ticket-buying app and bought a plane ticket in advance. This should be his first time traveling far since his transmigration. As a homebody, Gu Jinan suddenly found it a bit amusing. He had thought he would keep putting it off until Qin Shimingyu finished and then go home. Just as Gu Jinan said, Xia Ange had been going out early and returning late for the past week. It wasn't for no reason she had tracked down by phone a man named Qi Sheng in the city of Linqing. He was an ordinary-looking middle-aged man, yet he could potentially be the one to make a significant contribution to her song. Hello, Mr. Qi. My name is Xia Ange, a singer from Starlight Interactive Entertainment. I have a melody here, and I would like to ask you to take a look. If there's a chance, I would like to collaborate with you. This was the longest sentence Xia Ange had spoken so far this year. The middle-aged man on the other end of the line initially didn't notice that Xia Ange was someone who had been shelved by Starlight Interactive, and he agreed to meet at a cafe outside his wife's parents' home. Only after meeting did he remember, and he refused Xia Ange's request. If he helped Xia Ange write a song, it would be equivalent to creating difficulties for Chu Taoyu of Starlight Interactive. After all, Chu Taoyu's songs were still written by him. Wouldn't that be digging a hole for himself? But Xia Ange seemed to have anticipated this scene. She just lightly pursed her lips and told Qi Sheng that she would be waiting for him at the cafe downstairs until he left Linqing City. If he ever became interested, he could come down and listen to her melody. She was truly sincere about collaborating. Several times when Qi Sheng went downstairs to go out, he saw a girl in a baseball cap sitting in the cafe. She had put away her mask, revealing a pretty and cool face, quietly writing and sketching there. Watching Qi Sheng and his family go downstairs and gradually walk away, Xia Ange felt no stir in her heart. This wasn't the first time. Every evening at 8 o'clock, he would go out for a stroll with his family and return an hour and a half later, which was when her day at the cafe came to an end. She wasn't counting solely on Qi Sheng to help her. She just really needed someone to discuss things with. She really couldn't get in touch with any other musicians. Her agent could contact plenty of musicians, but her agent wanted her to unconditionally obey the company's arrangements. Even using her own Weibo account to promote Chu Taoyu's album, how could she possibly help? When Xia Ange returned to the apartment building, it was already 11 o'clock at night. Gu Jinan was walking out of the apartment with a backpack on his back. The next afternoon would be the third day, and the poetry event would start tomorrow afternoon. So Gu Jinan was taking a flight to Kyoto tonight. They both looked a bit awkward when they saw each other. It seemed that since the last time they asked Xia Ange if she was an idol singer, the two hadn't spoken a word. As they passed each other, Gu Jinan suddenly turned around and said, I just remembered that the utility bills are due this afternoon. I'll be out for 2 days, so I'll give you my share to pay since you're the landlord. Xia Ange turned back and heard Gu Jinan's words, softly humming in agreement. Gu Jinan took out his phone to pull up his WeChat QR code and extended it. The bright screen reflected Xia Ange's pretty face. After a moment's thought, she took out her phone and scanned Gu Jinan's QR code, revealing a WeChat account with a nickname, a straight man. On Gu Jinan's phone, it also showed NG request to add as friend. Using her real name as a nickname was something Gu Jinan had never seen before, but it suited her well enough. Her name carried a poetic flair, unlike his own Jinan, sounding just like straight man. This was downright ridiculous. After swapping WeChat contacts, the awkwardness from before returned. Gu Jinan waved his phone, saying he'd transfer the money to Xia Ange later, then quickly escaped the scene. When Xia Ange returned to her apartment, her phone buzzed with a message. She picked it up and saw that a straight man had sent her a transfer with the note utilities. She ignored it and sat down on the sofa without turning on the lights, feeling exhausted. Not just physically tired, but emotionally drained as well. In the early hours, Gu Jinan arrived in the capital. He didn't bother to take in the bustling nightscape of the national capital. He only wanted to get to the hotel next to the Poetry Association. The hotel's name had already been sent to him on WeChat by Chang Mengxi, and he could check in simply by giving his name. Since the hotel is free, I wonder if I can get the plane ticket reimbursed too. It's over $1,000, and summer is the peak season for flights, especially in July. The ticket prices are ridiculously high. Gu Jinan lay back on the bed, letting out a long sigh of relief. He was really tired, but thinking about the 50,000 yuan bonus he'd get tomorrow, he felt it wasn't so bad after all. Some people watch the sea at night, some fall in love at night, and some sleep at night without covering themselves with a blanket. Gu Jinan felt a bit unlucky to be in Kyoto. He had caught a cold. In the middle of summer, of all times, he got a cold. Was it from running the air conditioner too hard last night because electricity was free, or from taking the free hotel for granted? He didn't know. All he knew was that one nostril was completely blocked while the other was barely working, making him feel awful. It was only 10 a.m. now, and the poetry conference wouldn't start until 2 p.m. Gu Jinan felt completely groggy. I'd better go buy some medicine. Gu Jinan figured he couldn't keep going like this. After all, he couldn't show up at the poetry conference in the afternoon, all drowsy, while everyone else was enthusiastically participating. If the organizers got upset and decided not to pay him, what would he do? Since ancient times, Kyoto has been the capital of Huaxia, boasting numerous historical sites and cultural landscapes. The most famous and magnificent palace in Huaxia is located here, steeped in profound cultural heritage. Outside, the morning sun was rising high, and pedestrians hurried past. To these people, Kyoto was merely the city where they lived, but to Gu Jinan, Kyoto was just a fleeting stop. Afraid that taking medicine might make him drowsy and unable to wake up, Gu Jinan only bought instant granules. Back at the hotel, he brewed and drank them, which at least relieved his stuffy nose and made him feel a bit more alert, shaking off the drowsiness he had felt earlier. Knock, knock, knock. Just as he was about to lie down, a knock suddenly came from outside Gu Jinan's door. He had to get up again and go to answer it. Peeking through the peephole, he saw a woman in a professional short skirt and white blouse, wearing a pair of gold-rimmed glasses that made her look exceptionally mature. MILF. That was the only thought in Gu Jinan's mind. He slowly opened the door, a hint of confusion in his eyes because he didn't recognize this person. But the woman outside had already put on a professional smile when Gu Jinan opened the door, extending her hand as she spoke. Hello, Mr. Gu Jinan. I'm Chen Mengshi, Editor-in-Chief Cheng. Hello. Gu Jinan suddenly realized she was the person in charge of the Chinese Poetry Conference, also the editor-in-chief of the Chinese website. He quickly reached out to shake her hand, then let go. Chen Mengshi noticed Gu Jinan's state and looked a bit surprised. You have a cold? So obvious? Gu Jinan felt a little embarrassed. I slept with the AC too high last night and didn't cover myself properly. Ended up catching a cold. Chen Mengshi took out her phone and said to Gu Jinan, let me have someone buy some medicine for you. No need. No need. I've already taken medicine. Is there something you need from me, Editor-in-Chief Cheng? If there's something, say it. If not, I want to sleep. Chen Mengshi, unaware of Gu Jinan's inner thoughts, took an envelope and a dark gold invitation from her bag and handed them to him. This is the reward from the Chinese Literature Network platform, along with the invitation for this afternoon's poetry club. Mr. Gu's crossing Dongting Lake helped the Chinese Literature Network win a major victory over the Poetry Network. So I've come on behalf of our platform to deliver this to you personally. Oh, Gu Jinan instantly felt his spirits lift, especially when he casually pinched the envelope to gauge its thickness, at least 10,000. A bright smile spread across his face. How could this be? It's my duty as an author to bring glory to the Chinese Literature Network. Chief Editor Cheng, why bother delivering it in person? A simple notice, and I would have come over myself. Come in, have a glass of water. You must be tired. But Chen Mengshi shook her head. I still need to go back and handle things for the poetry club, so I won't come in. Mr. Gu, rest up. The afternoon's poetry club won't be simple. Chen Mengshi dropped a cryptic hint, smiled at Gu Jinan, and walked away with professional, steady steps. Not simple. Gu Jinan was a bit confused. Wasn't it just presenting an analysis, taking the money, giving a speech, and leaving? What other tricks were there? Closing the door, he casually tossed the dark gold invitation onto the bed. Gu Jinan eagerly tore open the envelope, still warm. He counted exactly 10,000. Damn, that's generous, a random reward of 10,000. Gu Jinan instantly perked up. His head stopped spinning, his nose unclogged. Truly, nothing cures all ills like this. In Linsheng, Xianji once again walked into that cafe, taking her usual seat. This was the 8th day. She planned to give it 3 more days before giving up. If no one was willing to help her, she would rely on herself. But this time, at noon, she saw someone she had been waiting for 8 days walk into the cafe, a middle-aged man of ordinary appearance. Qi Sheng sat down across from Xianji, ordered a coffee, and then said to her helplessly, Miss Xia, you are the most patient artist I've ever seen, far better than Shu Taoyu. If you weren't being targeted, she wouldn't hold a candle to you. Xian Ji took off her baseball cap to appear more dignified. Qi Sheng glanced at Xia Ange's expression, smiled, reached out to take the music draft on the table, and occasionally frowned. After a while, he looked up and said, "Can I hear that melody?" "Sure." Xia Ange took out her phone, opened a recording file, and played the melody that had been in her mind, which she had recorded. Qi Sheng listened intently, a look of surprise on his face. The melody was beautiful and gentle. If he could create a suitable tune and pair with lyrics, it might even become a hit.